Hello, everybody. It's Friday. That means it's time for another topic of the week. So, first things first, last week's topic on the clarifications and the FAQ upcoming for the Age of Sigmar and what you want to see answered. You know, there was an interesting divide that sort of emerged in the comments there, which I thought was fascinating. And what it sort of revolved around was, I think, how people interact with the game. And here's what I mean by that. In general, I don't think I've really run into much in the way of rules, questions, or clarifications that I have a concern over. And that's probably because the majority of my playing, the vast majority, is not with people I don't know or at game stores. It's with my sort of crew of friends who we've been wargaming together now for 20 years. And so if there's anything that we're not sure of in general, we'll just kind of say, does this make sense? Yeah, great. And then that's just the thing. So when these sorts of things have emerged, we've just found answers, and now we don't even realize it, right? It's so internalized as part of the game and the way we experience it that it's hard to separate it. And, I only go to maybe 3 or 4 tournaments a year, so that's really my only chances to play with people outside of my particular circle. And in those cases, usually if there's questions, the TO has answered them, right? So and I suspect people who have situations similar to me probably don't run into much in the way of rules clarifications. Whereas if your group is more contentious, or if you're playing, I should also state that we play a very relaxed form of Warhammer. It's very beer and pretzels, which is the way all of us like it. We're there to roll some dice, to kill some models, and have some fun. We don't think about it much deeper than that. Most of the time, my list is made, 10 minutes before my friends get here to play. So I'm not exactly spending a lot of time eking out maximum value for points or anything. And so I think that if that's your experience, chances are the way the rules are is probably there's not many questions or gaps in there. But I think that if you do play with people you don't know as well, if you play a more hard-edged style, if you're really going for the throat more, and where rules nuance can matter, if you're maybe playing in more tournaments regularly, although I'm not sure, because I do think TOs largely solve the gap there. If you're just playing people you don't know more, or you're playing more aggressively, more competitively, I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to start like a semantic discussion over that, because that often devolves quickly. But my point is that in all those cases, I think that's where those little gaps in the rules can really become problematic. I think for the most part, none of it's ever bothered me. I read it and I'm like, that's how it is. We all discuss it. Yep, great, move on. So that's, I think, the interesting divide that came up. And it's tough because I don't want, one of the responders in the comments had talked about how they want to see a lot more of these answers built into the main rules. And my answer was, no, I don't. Maybe I'd like to see some language cleaned up. I'm okay with that. That's always good. Simplifying and cleaning up your language, making it more precise in game rules is generally a good thing. So I support that 100%. But I don't want to see corner cases or the attempt to sketch every corner case built into the rules. Because all of that becomes barrier of entry, and all of that becomes noise. The problem with, say, a rule about charging, and then listing every weird corner case under it that could happen as a result of charging, is that all of that becomes something a new person feels like they have to internalize, even though it's entirely likely they could play for months and never run into those corner cases. And so the point being that when they do get to them, they've forgotten, but they felt like they need to learn them to start. There's a real sort of, it's a tough set of horns to navigate of how much do you include on that. I don't know that I have a right answer, but it's something that a lot of game designers have struggled with over the years. Let me just say, this is nothing new. This goes back to the 80s when people started writing in every single rule and every single corner case, and then there was pushback against it, and the pendulum has swung multiple times, okay? This isn't like, oh my God, we're breaking new ground here, folks. This is well-trod territory. Look under your feet. There is a deep rut in the road. And I don't think anybody's ever answered it really persuasively because it's information organization, and there's always different ways that different people like to have information organized for them to grok it. Maybe we'll do a topic about that sometime. That's rather esoteric. I'd have to think about how we break that into a topic. So anyways, that was that discussion on that. As always, that video is linked down below. Go check it out if you want to look at some really interesting discussion about what sort of their people are hoping to see in the FAQ. I know I'm interested. We should see it sometime soon, so see what happens. What do we get? I suspect between the FAQ and GHB2 and all that, we're going to be looking at a much different world very soon. So, let's turn to this week's topic, which is something that occurred to me when I got a wonderful comment today on Facebook that made me laugh, where a follower sent a note that said, I just bought the Dark Imperium box and I blame you, which I thought was funny because I've been talking up some 40k things. But it made me think about the allure to start new armies. And so I thought, what a wonderful topic. As 8th edition has come out, as we're getting some new getting started boxes for AOS here very soon, which I am excited for that Slanesh box. I've wanted a big Exalted Seeker Chariot for a while, but all the stores around me haven't had them, and I felt they're kind of too expensive, but if I can get them on a good deal as part of other things, well, then now you've sold me. So I'll probably be picking one of those up. But the thing that interests me is the as I said, the allure, the siren's call, there you go, to start a new army. So what's your personal rules for when you start a new army? How often do you get pulled into the flavor of the week? That is to say, does something becoming powerful in the meta motivate you to start a new army? Does something being newly released and sexy motivate you to start a new army? Does you thinking of an interesting take on how you would convert the army or the narrative of the army to you encourage you to start a new army, right? It's fascinating to me the different things that motivate people to make that investment, because it's not like playing Magic or something, right? Where like you can oftentimes, except unless we're talking about really cutting edge or old format decks, you can often play a new deck or start a new deck relatively cheaply. There are exceptions, as I said, especially as you get into older formats. But for the most part, if you're playing like Current or Block or something, you can try different decks out very quickly. Whereas here, it's a heck of an investment. Both money and, much more importantly, in my opinion, time. You can spend the money to buy an army probably pretty quickly. Putting it together, painting it, basing it, getting it ready, that's a longer prospect. And theoretically much more expensive. So the question then becomes, that's a huge barrier of entry to decide to go out and do that. Yeah, we all do it all the time, but for different reasons. So I thought that'd be a neat topic to discuss. What motivates you to start a new army? Is it the competitiveness, something rises in the meta, which sometimes can be related to a new release, but not always. Okay? There was a time fairly recently where Tomb Kings became all the rage. There was nothing new about Tomb Kings. Let me just point that out. Sometimes it's just things getting unlocked or points getting shifted or changed or whatever. Is it, like I said, is it the new release, the new sexy? KO, when they came out, were divisive, but there was a lot of people who loved them and a lot of Dwarven armies at the table. I had wanted trees for a long time. And as soon as I heard that Alariel was going to be on a beetle, I called my store and said pre-order the whole army when it comes out. We didn't even have a release list yet. But I knew it was going to be a tree army, which I had wanted forever, and I knew it was going to have Alariel on a giant beetle. And I was like, yes and yes, I'm in. That sold me. Sometimes, though, I've done it because I thought of an interesting narrative or way to convert. For the Stormcast, for me, I didn't do anything with Stormcast when they initially launched. It took me discovering and thinking of turning them into sort of Bretonnians, into the Grailcast, that made me want to do that. And that was sometime later, where the conversion, the narrative of the army is what motivated me. Maybe you have your own other reasons. So, that's what I want to talk about. That's what I'm interested in. Drop in the comments, what motivates you to pick up a new force? I'm interested in your responses. And as always, if you make a video response, I'll link that down below. So you can always come back here, check out that description, and find all those video responses. But as always, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.